Democratic State Representative Mihaela Plesa of Dallas and also Vice Chair of the Texas House Democratic Caucus. Thank you so much for joining us and welcome back to Eye on Politics.
Thank you so much for having me. It's great to see you.
Great to see you. So the budget has been released, the proposed budget for 2026, 2027, and I'm wondering if you've had a chance to look at the highlights and what do you make of it overall?
My staff and were excited to see it come out, and we started combing through to see, what are the parts that we love, what are the parts that we hate, and we're getting to learn it. Do I have a feeling? Do I have an overall feel of how I feel about the budget? I'm happy to see that there's money in there for public education. I'm happy to see that there's money in there for cybersecurity and for healthcare expansion. I'm unhappy to see that there's a little money in there for vouchers, taxpayer funded vouchers. And so we'll see how that plays out as we move through the legislative session.
Well, to your point there on education savings accounts, and the state has set aside, both the House and the Senate have set aside $1 billion out of general revenues, is what I've been told, for taxpayer-funded education savings accounts using taxpayer money, $1 billion, to allow some students to attend private schools. How big of a fight is this going to be, do you think?
Well, it's going to be $1 billion fight. So we need to make sure that when we're talking about taxpayer money, that's your money, that's our constituents' money, that has accountability to it, that has some oversight to it, that we know what it's going to fund. We have seen that in other states, these proposals tend to balloon after a couple of years. And so we're going to have to look into the nitty gritty of what this $1 billion is going to do for Texas children, because that's what this is about. Our kids going to be able to read, our kids going to be able to do math. And we have seen that these ESAs or these voucher schemes tend to not have the return on their investment that they promise.
And so if you're going to be fighting it, because Governor Abbott has said he has the votes in the House, the Senate, we already know is going to pass this. So you're looking for accountability measures. What else are you looking for as it relates to this? Because we saw a bill the last time that didn't make it. Of course, none of them did. Really emphasized low-income people having first crack at this. Is that something, if this is going to happen, that you want to see?
Well, look, we have seen specifically in Arizona that low income families are not the families that are using these ESAs or these vouchers. We tend to see that higher income families have it. A lot of them are kids that are already in private schools. And so it's much more than, okay, is the kid, graduating on level? I mean, the STAR test is going to be big on this. Our ISDs have to implement a STAR test. Private schools, homeschools don't have to do that. How do you get to your private school? A lot of private schools have a fee onto transportations. Our local ISDs, you can just go grab the bus like I did when I was a kid. And so there's a lot of oversight that needs to go into giving your taxpayer money to a private school or a home school for that matter.
And you spoke a little bit before about public school funding. You said you were happy to see an increase. It looks like it's about $5 billion. The Senate said 5.3 on its budget. The House, I believe, said 4.9 on its budget. It may all be the same at the end of the day, but I'm just wondering, when you see $4,000 for every teacher, an additional $4,000 of salary, and then $6,000 for rural teachers to bring them up to where some of the larger school districts are. What do you make of that?
Well, I'm really happy to see that our teachers are finally going to get a pay raise. This is very important. We know that our rural school districts are really struggling, and they're going to struggle even more if we implement a voucher or an ESA. And so I think that this is a great start. We need to also see about any increases to the basic allotment. I would like to see the basic allotment index to inflation so it keeps up with in perpetuity. We don't have to come back every 2 years and beg for more money for our ISDs. So yeah, I like to see that. I like to see that we're talking about healthcare expansion in the budget, specifically ECI or early childhood interventions. This is a part of our budget that really is going to have the return on the investment when we talk about setting up our kids for success in their schools. So those are the things that I'm excited about. I like to see that we're talking about water infrastructure. I wish it would have been a little bit more money there, but these are the conversations that really matter when we're talking about protecting the Texas miracle.
Yeah, there's $2.5 billion for water infrastructure. And I mean, every lawmaker I've spoken with at the Capitol, everybody says this is important.
Oh
Um,
yeah, this is going to be a water session. I think that we've heard our Speaker Burrows, talk about that this is going to be a water session. Texas is in dire need of water. And so whether we're going to be talking about getting that water from Mexico or surrounding states, creating new technological investments so that we can preserve surface water and inject it into aquifers, all these things need to be in play when we're talking about protecting the Texas miracle, when we talk about expanding our communities, right? We see Collin County is one of the fastest growing counties in the state. And so we want to make sure that we're creating really avenues of success for future developments in our state.
I did want to go back to school budget. Just one last question, and that was 400 million extra dollars set aside for school safety. What's your thought on that?
Well, we know that this money has also been held up by the governor. He did not release the school safety budget because the legislature, the House of Representatives, didn't pass his voucher scam last legislative session. And that was unfortunate because our schools need to make sure that they are safe. I have seen here in my districts, Plano ISD has taken one avenue of implementing this mandate. Allen ISD has taken another avenue. Both school districts have high costs in making sure that our kiddos are safe. And some school districts throughout the state have had issues with third party contractors that have come in to fulfill some of these mandates. And so we really need to let this money go. We need to let these schools create the systems that's best for them, whether they're in an urban district or a rural district, to make sure that our kids are safe in the classrooms. We lead the nation in mass shootings. Texas leads the nation in mass shootings, and we need to make sure that when we drop our kids off at school that they are safe.
I also wanted to ask you about the $6.5 billion set aside for border security, maintaining the current state of operations at the southern border for the state of Texas. No additional monies called for. What do you think about that?
Well, I'm happy to see that we're not putting more money into the system. I would like to go through that money and make sure that we are creating avenues for our National Guard and our Border Patrolsmen to get the resources that they need. A lot of them have been down there since the beginning of Operation Lone Star. And so they have left their families, they have left their workforce. We need to make sure that they are getting the resources that they need while we're securing our border and making sure that we're protecting our state.
And what are you specifically talking about?
I would like to see making sure that we're getting some mental health resources down to our men and women down there. I would like to see that we are not having or expanding the troops that are down there. That's a huge cost to our state, right? And that means that we are making larger investments in housing. We just saw the opening of a huge housing development down at the border. Those things cost money, and keeping them running costs money. And so that's what I want to see. I want to see that we have accountability and transparency around where our money is going.
Two other questions real quick. The lieutenant governor recently said that he would like, the state may need to actually go back in and take a look at the law and maybe make it a little bit more specific as it relates to the state's abortion law, so that doctors have a more firm idea of what the law is. What's your thought about this?
Well, it's unfortunate that I have to say that I agree with him, and that I wish that it wouldn't have taken so long for some of my colleagues on the Republican side to understand that this bill has been killing women, and it's making our healthcare providers live in an environment of fear when they're providing life-saving treatment to women in our state. And so I'm looking forward to starting these conversations, whether they're with our lieutenant governor Senator Brian Hughes, or even my district neighbor, Representative Jeff Leach, who also has said that we need to look at the language. I think that these are conversations that the House Women Caucus has been talking about for a long time when we wanted reports to come out on maternal mortality and infant mortality. So yeah, it's about time. Texas women have been waiting far too long for us to look at this draconian bill.
And my last question to you is just about the budget overall. The budgets proposed by the House and Senate are very close to each other, very similar in nature. And do you think that's a good thing and may head off, squabbles between both the House and the Senate and perhaps prevent, dare I say it, special session?
Well, like my husband says and my family says, the less that we're down there, the less trouble we get into. And I think that it's very intensive and it's very good and it's a good start. The intent is very good that the House and the Senate are starting to work together because, like I've said before, this is the people's time. This is our Texans' time. And we really need to focus on the things that we're talking about in the budget: cybersecurity investments, water infrastructure investments, making sure our teachers get a pay raise, making sure our kids with disabilities have the money that they need in early childhood investments so that they succeed. And so that's what I'm excited about. I really think that when we work together, we get the best deals for our Texans and our constituents.
State Representative Mihaela Plesa, also Vice Chair of the Texas House Democratic Caucus. Thank you so much. We appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you so much.